What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Enjoying the Review. I'm your host, Incomparable Zach Jones, and on tonight's show, I will be reviewing Star Wars Skeleton Crew Episode 5, entitled You Have a Lot to Learn About Pirates. As always, I want to remind everybody to pretty please, with a cherry on top, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also leave thumbs up, positive reviews, comments, all that good stuff. You can also subscribe in audio form on your podcast catcher of choice. And if we're not on your podcast service of choice, let me know and I'll see if I can fix that. And you can also follow me on Twitter or Blue Sky at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. All right, guys, let's get into it. So episode 5. I'll say I think I generally enjoyed this episode. Again, the show isn't knocking my socks off or anything. But I thought we had, I'm gonna give this episode a 6.8 out of 10. I thought it was decent. A good sense of adventure. We got some good sets, I thought. But again, there's still the kind of been there, done that feeling of Goonies, but in space. And also there was a few things in this episode that I'm like, I know this is meant to be basically red meat for kids. Like kids will enjoy this bit, but and I know this is ostensibly a kid show. But it's one of those things where they're like, this is Star Wars, so they know everybody's watching no matter what. So as an adult, there's a few things that I kind of rolled my eyes at. But I'm like, overall, still entertaining. It does kind of feel, though, that they're stretching out, getting back to their home world. But but we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, guys, let's get into the spoilers. Let's break down the episode. So when we start off actually on Ad, and we see that Wendell and Neil's mother plot to get a code sent. They want to get this code that will bypass the barrier around the planet, at least to get a message out to the kids. So I think it's Neil's mother gives Wendell something to plug into his computer to get that code. But when he tries it, he ends up getting caught by a security droid. And we get the sense that, he would be in big trouble, except that Fern's mother, Farah, she uses her position there to basically, wipe the droid and get Wendell off the hook. But this leads to a discussion between them where Farah is basically like, hey, Wendell, I told you not to do anything yet. I'm trying to get this through proper channels and get, this mysterious supervisor to approve everything. And he basically convinces her, hey, that's not going to happen. We know that's not going to happen. And she finally comes around and okay, what's the plan then? But then we cut from there, so we don't know exactly what the parents are going to do. So now we're on the ship. Jod and the kids tie down SM-33. As you remember at the end of last episode, he was kind of trying to seemingly tear them apart. So they tie him down and they turn him back on. So the kids make SM-33 promise not to hurt them. And he says he won't, and that was the old captain's orders. He says that his old captain was Captain Tack Renaud, which is a name that Jod recognizes. Jod says that the ship that they're on, because he knows, that Renaud was the captain of the ship is called the Onyx Cinder. Which, how do they name spacecrafts in Star Wars? The Millennial Falcon, and now the Onyx Cinder. It's they just take two random words and smash them together, and that's the ship name. I want to know the rhyme and reason to these ship names. So Jod says that Renaud is the most infamous pirate in the galaxy. Or the most infamous pirate the galaxy has ever known. He says that for years he roamed the skies, plundering and terrorizing whole star systems. And he took anything that he wanted. And John, when he said that, he said it almost like he was admiring like him, like he kind of wishes like, he was that kind of pirate. He says that Renaud was after the treasure of At-Aten aboard the mysterious ship, the Onyx Cinder, when he just disappeared alongside his whole crew and the ship. SM-33 says he does not know where At-Aten is still, but Renaud scanned the coordinates and hid them in his lair deep beneath Skull Ridge Mountain. So Fern tells SM-33 to take them there to Skull Ridge Mountain, and he easily breaks through his restraints and does so. SM-33 says that Renaud's first mate got greedy and started a mutiny, and then the captain was betrayed by his own concubine, who stabbed him with his own dagger. There's a lot of mutiny in this series. I did kind of like they do the gag where one of the kids is like, "What's a concubine?" and then he just has to pass over it real quick. SM-33 says the captain got the last laugh because he locked down the controls and the whole mutinous lot of them died, crashing into At-Aten. Okay. I have a little bit of a logic problem with this, because it's like, how hard, how tough is this spacecraft? It supposedly crashed into At-Aten. That's why it was buried when the kids found it. But it didn't break the spaceship enough to where it couldn't fly just fine. And it said his whole crew died. All we've seen is that one skeleton in the beginning that had the knife, stuck to the wall. Maybe that was his first mate, or no, that was actually probably the captain, because he was stabbed by the concubine, right? But where are all the other bodies? Is there a bay to the ship that they have not gone into? Shouldn't there be other bodies in there? I don't know. But yeah, it also seems like the ship should be damaged beyond repair rather than able to fly just fine. So SM-33 says he was put together inside this captain's lair, this Skull Ridge Mountain lair. That's where he was born. Jod notices that Wim went off by himself, so he follows him and he sees him crying. And Wim tells him that all he ever wanted was an adventure. And Jod's like, well, you're on one now. You're going to a secret pirate base, But Wim says he didn't think it'd be like this. He's scared, he's confused, and he misses his mom and dad. I guess I'm okay with this, but his whole development so far has been ecstatic that he's finally on an adventure, and I could see bringing in the missing his dad element, but I don't know, yeah, I'm sure he is somewhat scared and everything, but I don't know. The only thing I've gotten so far from this show before this was he was ecstatic, to despite the danger, he was enjoying himself. So I don't know. It felt a bit abrupt for his character to change like that, but okay, it's fine. And I think Jod says don't worry, you'll be back with them soon enough. And he mentions well, I won't be seeing my mom again. So I assume his mom is probably dead, unless they're going to do something else with that, where she just left or something, whatever. So Jod tells him to forget about all of his fears, anxiety, and his parents, because they are all just attachments, and he doesn't need them. Jod says that's what he did, but Wim says he cannot do that. So, we're getting a little peek of Jod's life, too. Apparently, probably he didn't have the best parents or, family or whatever. And obviously his crew mutinied him as well, so he probably feels abandoned, himself. Jod tells him that he has a great imagination and that your focus determines your reality. He tells him to make his life the one he wants to live. And then I wrote, he seemingly uses the Force to put Wim's tablet in his hand. I think he has to be using the Force. Like, I don't think like him doing all these times it can just be a trick. So I think he's got to be Force sensitive. Speaking of which, Wim asks him how he does that since he's not really a Jedi, but they're leaving some mystery here. He doesn't tell, and he gets up and walks away. So they make their way to the mountains, and they see some other ships around the area. SM-33 thinks that they are pirates, but Jod says they look like pleasure yachts. So this ship pulls up, and it welcomes them to Lanupa. That's the name of this planet, apparently. Which he calls a neutral planet where all are welcome if they keep the peace. But they say violators will be shot down. So SM-33 says that Lanupa is also known as the Demon's Rest and Battle World. The pleasure yacht tells Jod that no kids are allowed. But Fern insists on going with him. The kids disguise themselves as wise elders covered in robes, or at least that's what Jod tells the lady there. Is like, oh, these guys are wise elders, and they speak this language you don't understand. It. He pretends to speak and everything. So SM-33 gets out, and he discovers that Skull Ridge Mountain has basically been transformed into like this luxury hotel / spa. So now they got to go in there and search for the coordinates. So security takes away Jod's knife, and they also put a restraining bolt on SM-33. But Jod uses the Force to take back his knife as soon as the guards aren't looking. So they go inside, and Jod basically got all the kids to give him their remaining Republic credits. And he uses those to bribe his way into a fancy suite because he's obviously doesn't have a reservation. He's not on the list. And he tells this woman, oh yeah, I'm that professor guy. He uses the Republic credit to bribe her and everything. But as he's setting all that up, a woman walks by who recognizes Jod, but she recognizes him under yet another alias of Dash Zenton. She introduces herself. Her name is Pocket. And she's apparently a bounty hunter, and he apparently stole a bounty from her in the past. So there's a little tension between them. She says she now works for a private person rather than doing low-grade guild jobs, bounty hunting jobs. So she's moving on up in the world. Before she leaves, she tells the kids not to trust Jod. So she leaves, and they go on an elevator, and they get out. And Jod tells the kids that the woman is a ruthless bounty hunter and with a bad grudge. He says that she probably already called his name in. And he tells the kids that they must assume somebody is coming after them, and so that they must move fast. SM-33 says that the entrance will be marked with the captain's sigil, and he carves it into a cabinet or a desk or something. So Jod is trying to explain what to do, and the kids, they start having a pillow fight or something and playing. Again, this is one of those things that it's probably amusing for a kid watching this, but as an adult, you're like, oh, okay. But he interrupts the kids from playing, and he tells them that they need to split into teams to search for the coordinates faster. This is something I didn't understand. KB acts like she's afraid and she doesn't want to go with, and they're all like, what's wrong? Are you just afraid that your visor will get steamed up or something? You're afraid of the steam? And she's like, no. So, like, I was thinking there is like, oh, so she is afraid of something and she just doesn't want to tell them. But then it's never really brought up again. And, like, we do see her at one point be like, oh, steam or whatever. So I'm like, what, were they right? Was it the steam that was bothering her? I don't know. Maybe I missed something there. But I was like, I thought there was going to be more to her story in this episode, and there really wasn't. So now we get a scene where Pocket calls Brutus, and she is claiming Jod's bounty. So he was right. She's calling in his name. Brutus tells her that he is going to send 2 ships full of his men to this planet. We get a little cameo. I guess it's not a cameo, but we see that a hut, not Jabba the Hutt, obviously, but a hut is taking a mud bath, just to get one of them in this world, I guess. SM-33, Wim, and Fern form one team, and then Jod, KB, and Neil form another team to search. A guard questions Jod if he's the professor that he claimed to be earlier, and instead of just like trying to like fake his way through with dialogue, he just like runs away, and the guards start to chase him. Inside the spa, Fern finds the captain's sigil, but then is confronted by some sort of large, like, sea creature-looking alien. Jod gets surrounded by guards, and then KB is able to take, like, a pipe wrench and, like, rupture a pipe to spray all the guards and get them free. This is kind of what I was referencing, like, at the beginning of this review, is, like, one of those, like, really, like, kid show type things where, like, I'm sure, like, a little kid might get a, like, charge out of this, but as an adult, it's one of those things you kind of just roll your eyes at, and you're like, oh, okay, kid show, that kind of thing. So the teams reunite inside the spa, and Fern has actually made friends with the big, large sea creature from before. And the creature, because they've kept him entertained or whatever, he agrees to help them, so he uses his, like, tail or some sort of appendage to break through the captain's sigil thing so they can get down where they need to go. So Brutus's men show up on the planet and start wreaking havoc. SM-33 tells the group that the tunnels are lined with booby traps, so they need to follow him. Although Neil does end up, like, accidentally springing, like, a laser trap that, like, almost, like, kills the group or whatever. The group can hear the pirates coming, so they know they have to act fast. They eventually come into this chamber that's filled with water, and SM-33 says they need to get in the, like, where they need to get is in the chamber below this pool of water. But twist, SM-33 dips his toe in the water and finds out that it's not water at all. It's actually boiling acid. Little Batman Forever reference. And I don't even think I said it right. KB sees writing on the ceiling that reads, "All who enter paradise must make the greatest sacrifice." So, like, her first thought is like, oh, someone has to sacrifice their life to get in here. But then they put it together that for a pirate, the greatest sacrifice would be treasure. So Jod throws a coin, one of the last, like, Republic credits of the kids, in the acid. And the acid magically gets drained out of the room. I don't know what kind of technology could automatically sense like that and do that, but hey, it's Star Wars, kids. The pirates show up and start shooting at them, so they close the door behind them after they go into this place underneath, So they enter a room filled with treasure. This definitely had Goonies vibes. Jod tells the kids not to touch any of the treasure because it's booby-trapped. So they're, like, searching for the captain's data core, and Jod's basically like, you guys need to be searching for something, that's out of the ordinary. While they're searching, Jod notices a lightsaber. Or, sorry, Wim notices a lightsaber. But then Neil notices, like, there's this table with, like, food on it or something, and he notices, like, there's, like, a pot roast or something that looks fresh, so that looks out of place. He goes to touch it, but, like, since he's short, he climbs up on, like, a chair, and it, like, falls into the ground, and they, like, catch him or whatever. But that was, like, a booby trap, I guess. So Jod, he, like, turns his pot roast, and it opens up a thing that brings up the captain's data core. Or data port, whatever they call it. So SM-33 logs into this thing. And Jod has him, since he's logged in, fill that chamber back up with acid to get the pirates away. Jod asks SM-33 if the log mentions the treasure, and he says it does. So SM-33 plays a recording from the captain. In the recording, he says that the treasure is the last old Republic mint. So, and they're like, oh, that's why they call it the, at the planet of eternal treasure or whatever, because you can just make money, to your heart's content. So Fern asks Jod if they still have a deal, and he says he invokes the right to challenge the captain per the pirate code. So SM-33 says that according to the code, they must have a hand-to-hand combat to the death. But Jod's like, we don't actually have to do that. You just have to say you yield, and I'll be the new captain. So he tries to get her to say that, but she instead, like, picks up this thing and takes a swing at him, and he puts his knife to her throat. Wim goes and picks up the lightsaber that he saw earlier, but then he accidentally ignites it upside down. So Fern, she doesn't really have a choice, so she reluctantly says that she yields, and so Jod is the new captain. Although we can definitely tell that Jod didn't actually, want to kill her, and I don't think it also gives you the sense that he wouldn't have. So, like, if she just refused here, like, what would he have done? So Jod takes off SM-33's restraining bolt and orders him to take the kids as prisoners, and the charge is mutinous intent against their captain. But before SM-33 can take them, Wim hits, because conveniently they're kind of all next to that table where, like, Neil accidentally opened the hole before. So Wim purposely hits the chair, and they drop down. But my thing is, like most likely you would think that was a booby trap. So, like, there could possibly be, like, spikes or something underneath. But I'm sure we'll find out next episode that no, they're just fine. But it seemed like, in retrospect, Wim, maybe a bad idea. And then this episode ends with Jod using the Force to pick up the lightsaber. So yeah, I think a decent episode, but possibly, like, some things that didn't totally make sense to me, or like I said, the whole thing with, like, oh, the ship originally, like, crashed into Atten so hard that it killed all the crew, but the ship's relatively fine, and they only ever saw one body in that ship. That seems a little weird to me. So maybe some, of course, I don't know, maybe something they'll explain in more detail. I doubt it, though. And yeah, like I said, some of the stuff that's more aimed at kids it's more aimed at kids. I don't know if I should be scoring these episodes a little higher, just because I'm like, I should go, well, that's the kids show, like, bias, and I should ratchet things up a little bit. No, I'll stick with a 6.8 for this episode. I think that's fair. I think it was a decent episode. So where do we go from here? So, I mean, fingers crossed they won't drag it out even longer for them getting back to that. And I'm like, hope that that's going to happen in the next episode, but it wouldn't surprise me if it doesn't. Because you would think the parents would at least like find a way to start enacting their plan before the kids can make it there. Um, I this thing eventually you would think has to culminate with a showdown between Jod and his old crew, Brutus and his old crew. Um, um, but even though I'm not like hating this show, I think maybe by the end I'll have a different opinion. But I am kind of hoping that this is a just like one and done, like one season show. Like uh, I think that would be my preference. Because like I think I don't know if it's concrete or not, but I think like it's heavily rumored that Marvel, because um, Agatha All Along was such a success, that they're going to do a season 2 of that. And I really liked Agatha All Along, but I'm still like, even despite the fact that I liked it, I'm kind of like, I think I would rather them just leave it as a one season show and move on. Like you can maybe use that character again in a different show or movie, but I think I'd rather them move on, even though I quite liked the season. I don't know. Um, Whereas I don't really feel like with Andor, like I'm like stoked that there's another season, which I believe is coming. I'm pretty sure 2025, so that's something to look forward to on the Star Wars front. But I'll end there. That's it for this episode, guys. I want to thank you once again, and just like I said, please subscribe to the channel. Thumbs up, positive reviews, comments, all that good stuff. Again, if you prefer audio, you can subscribe in audio on your podcast catcher choice. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Zach Jones Live, ZachJonesLive. But until next time, guys, I hope you're enjoying the review. Bye, guys.